How's it going, guys? This is Sam for another episode of Ask 3 Run, and this time the question came from the description of the previous video. It kind of talks about asking how has parkour free running evolved with the development of new teams that have come along, new athletes that have come into the game, and has it evolved naturally? Is it being pushed by certain norms or the creativity of certain people that are in it? And this is a real broad question and something that I can talk about for hours and hours, and deep down there's no real right or wrong. So please, this is my disclaimer right now. This is my interpretation, this is my personal 2 cents on it, Sampara, more so than even 3 Run, because I'm sure within 3 Run we also have a few guys with some slightly different perspectives on how things have evolved. But one thing I can say is I've been in the game since, what, 2003, 2002 sort of time, and so it's been quite a while since I started, and having watched it evolve. Now, in the UK especially, I think it's fair to say that we pioneered it in the early days. We really pushed parkour into the world consciousness, you know. Of course, there was the early sort of days of David Bell, Sebastian Foucault, the Yamakasi, you know, the French influences that really kind of started it. But it's also fair to say that particularly and notably through Sebastian Foucault, through Mike Christie's documentaries, Jump Britain, Jump London, then Jump Britain, the introduction of urban free flow at that time, 3 Run were in the mix as well. That's where it really came into a public consciousness. But that's not to say that that's legitimately where the history came from, but it's important to recognise it as we equally recognise the French, you know, initial stages and early stages of development. Now, I appreciate that's a very, very loose, brief introduction to where free running, or should I say parkour, came from, and then you had the wave of free running where it was, okay, the big argument of is parkour free running, is free running parkour? Parkour is A to B efficient movement, free running is just flips and somersaults. And this is again my interpretation, and I have met a lot of these people. I've met David Bell, I've met Sebastian, I've met Stefan Vigru, Forrest, a lot of the French guys, as well as the newer age guys, and in all honesty I feel like parkour is everyone's. It's not, I really don't believe it's owned by one person that says this is how it is, because, you know, I remember the early interviews with David, I remember the early interviews with Yamakasi, where there was a rift in between those guys as to what it was. And so I feel like the community and the communities around the world have really evolved it naturally into it being what they want it to be. I mean, take a look at, okay, pre-competition, before Red Bull Art of Motion came on the scene, before any competitions came on the scene, you had this big explosion of the internet videos. Free Run were obviously a massive part of that, where we actually interpreted parkour and free running as one. You know, we almost also brought in influences of martial arts and all these different disciplines. We just saw it as movement, and, you know, we had the opportunity of training with the amazing likes of Daniela Backer, Ryan Doyle, obviously Chase Armitage within our crew, and we almost, I wouldn't say created something new, I would certainly not go that far, but we took things to this new level of movement where I think also the internet and the public and even the community of parkour and free running weren't even necessarily ready, because they didn't realise that we could push the limits or the boundaries of what was possible with this movement to that place. And I remember actually, you know, not wanting to put them in a box myself, but I feel like many of them, and not calling out any names, put themselves in this box of being very purist tracers that were parkour, A to B efficiency, that's all we do. And I remember watching those people see other people that were arguably in that box as well start learning some flips and some somersaults and adding different dynamics and styles of movement into their style, and seeing the progression that it then brought them as a rounded athlete. You know, it actually improved their jumps, improved their cognitive kind of reactions and ability, and I would argue, you know, made them a better tracer as well as a free runner as well. And so as things evolved, you then saw this worldwide spark where it was no longer just about France and England. You know, you really started seeing some big names coming through from completely different places. And, you know, Pasha is a great example of someone like that came from like a breakdance creative background and almost, you know, took the style to a new level again. And it's, nothing is necessarily wrong, nothing is necessarily right, and that's the beauty of where parkour and free running has naturally evolved to, because the community has essentially just embraced what it likes. It's embraced what looks cool or works well or flows nicely. And so you had this whole style come into it that I would argue, I'm not just giving Pasha the full credit here, because you then had other guys from Latvia, Riga, you know, Slava, Petin, who just came in with a really flowful, creative style. I mean, there's so many names, Stas, like, there's so many names, I don't want to get into that kind of side of things, but so many different individuals, you know, yes, a lot of the free run guys, Chase especially, Danny, Ryan, all of these people were bringing in new movement styles, and it was being embraced by the community, and very, very quickly you started to see these purist tracers almost get drowned out, because the movement had evolved, everything had evolved. There still wasn't a set system of what everything was, you know. You then started seeing Sebastian going off and doing films, James Bond, for example. You saw David Bell very much doing the same thing, going to District 13 and even having influences in the Prince of Persia film, for example. And so there wasn't really any one or any entity that just claimed parkour and said, well, this is exactly how it is and this is how it's going to be forever. And I think that's a good thing, I really do, because it allowed everybody to come in a very organic, in a very authentic and natural way to evolve the discipline and evolve the sport into what it had the potential of being. And bear in mind, I remember the days when, you know, doing a corkscrew move was considered, you know, high level, and you've now got kids at 14 years old or maybe younger doing double corkscrews. And I don't want to take this into a tricking thing and just, oh well, that's just a trick, but then it started being into combos and it started being into lines, and then essentially came the competition world. And now, I mean, you've got loads of competitions, and the cool thing about all of this is that it also opens up opportunities for people. You know, back in the day, there was only really the opportunity for a small few people to make a career out of this thing. And, you know, I talked about becoming a professional free runner in a previous video. But by competitions coming on the scene, it attracts brands, it attracts essentially money, which then attracts opportunities and allows people to do something that they really enjoy and make a career out of it. And in my book, and I know I speak for Free Run in this, that's only a good thing. That can only be a good thing. And so as these competitions came in, obviously it started a bit of, you know, there was a lot of apprehension within the community. No one really knew how it was going to affect things. No one knew if it was going to be a good or a bad thing. And even today, you can't necessarily say categorically it's a bad thing or it's a good thing. There's different perspectives, and equally that's because people want to pull this entity in their own way to suit what they prefer or how they deem it being. Well, this person said it should be like this, so that's how it's got to be. I honestly feel like the discipline evolved way beyond that. And interestingly, now in 2017, you've got a lot of the people in the original days now coming back to it saying, well, actually, no, we do own it, and it is our thing, and it is this. But it's almost, in my eyes, too late for that. You know, it's kind of, there's ulterior motives involved, and you can kind of, I don't want to get into all the politics side of things, but you can very much see the disagreements and the arguments even within those groups, which is why I feel like parkour and free running has grown so much beyond that, that it's shaped itself as a result of the communities coming together and defining it themselves. And that's pretty much where we are now. So to come back round 360 to the original question of has it grown organically have these other teams come in and influence that? Yes, definitely, and I think that's a great thing. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, well, I've been doing this for 15 odd years or whatever. I have the right to say that my opinion's more important, or what I want it to be is more important, but that's not true and that's not right. Everybody, I actually love the fact that it's evolved, and it's a case of, you can always stay within the community. There's still so much respect for what people have done. You don't have to be the guy that's doing the craziest moves or the craziest tricks to still be a part of the community and be a part of something great, which is parkour and free running. And so where we are now, you've got influences, and I'm happy to, you know, drop some names. You've got influences from Farang, you've got influences from Stora, you've got influences from 3Run, you've got influences from the American guys, Tempest, WFPF. There's so many, and again, I don't want to get into the oh, you missed this name, you missed that. There's so many, and there's so many insane talents coming up as well, which is really exciting. I love it. I embrace it. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for the discipline. I think the competitive format is just adding another facet and another opportunity for people to get involved and do something with it. It's great that if you want to get involved in parkour on a side hobby and you want to just do it every weekend, and you work your different job, and this is just a way for you to keep fit, enjoy training with friends, learn your body, develop all the benefits of parkour training. Great, that's cool. But there's also a place for the people that want to do it and take it even more seriously and want to make a career out of it. Hence going back to my previous video with regards to how to become a professional freerunner. So there's so many different opportunities now that it's a great thing, and it's only evolving, and it's growing at such a fast rate. And so it's completely organic. It's too big for anyone to just come in and say, we now own it, which is why, in my opinion, the way that that's then going on forward is people collaborating and coming together. And that again is a completely separate video that I don't want to get into in this, because that brings in the politics, that brings in the this person thinks this, that person thinks that, and that's not what this is about. Right now, in terms of the organic, natural growth and development of the discipline, of the movement, it's been completely authentic, and it's awesome, it's super exciting, and I think it's continuing to happen, where every day we're seeing new names, fresh faces, fresh styles, fresh backgrounds coming into it, taking it one step further again. And the constant thing for us from Freerun's perspective, it's always been about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, entertaining, inspiring, and that's what's happening with parkour freerunning. That's exactly what's happening. Those boundaries are continuing to be pushed, and it might not be by us as much anymore. It might be by the next guys, but that's an awesome thing. That's a great thing. I remember the days where it was, you would be hard pushed to even find a female that could do any kind of parkour, let alone the standard and the elite level that you've now got, you know, tens, hundreds maybe of females doing. And that's just one example. So it's an amazing thing how it's grown at such a strong rate in such a short space of time. Is it defined? Is it finished? Is it where it's going to be, and that's as far as it's going to go? Definitely not. And that's the exciting thing. More people are coming in, and those people are bringing new perspectives to take it that one step level higher again. And so, I mean, I'm excited to see where it's going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's just going to keep on going. So super exciting, great question. Keep them coming. This is Ask 3Run. Any more questions, hit us up. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit us up on the other social medias. Keep training, and anything else we can do for the community, for you guys, always get in touch. Let us know. We're down, we're in, we're among it, and we just want to keep this movement moving.